Like most of us, when I'm looking at buying a gun or find something interesting, I fire it across to a few friends and say, should I buy this? The gun in this case was in Holt's sealed bid sale, usually some questionable items in there. And I sent it to Simon, and I sent it to Greg, head of the gun room at Orvis in America. Both of them said to avoid it like the plague because it was junk, and so, like any good friend's advice, I ignored it. So what did I buy? A Parker shotgun is what I bought. This is a GH grade made in 1897. This particular one has clearly had a hard life. It was in Holt's sealed bid for 80 to 120. I bid 100 and ended up paying £130 including. That said, that could also be incorrect. I may have paid 130 plus commission. It's a while ago now. It's been sat there for 6 months, building up to the moment that I was happy and brave enough to shoot it, which was a few months ago, and I fell deeply in love for a gun I bought as a bit of a joke. Starting at the back, we have the Parker Bakelite heel plate with the Parker Dog Parker Brothers 2 engraved screws and its inlet at the top. This was a fine grade shotgun. You can see the toe here was broken off at some point and somebody has very nicely just put 3 nails in it to hold it together, which is sad. Sort of a testament to how much this gun was treasured as a workhorse, if nothing else. Underneath 130 years of grime is a stunning piece of American black walnut. You wouldn't want to refurb it, but if you did, imagine how that would come up. That is a stunning piece of wood. The stock is 14 inches long. It's not a big stock, but I don't want to change what it is, to be honest. I think it's nice. The profile of the stock is beautiful. The wood is sculpted and fluted in lovely ways. It has a pistol grip that is broken through the hand grip. Instead of repairing it and pinning it, someone has put a Selous style plate. Frederick Courtney Selous was a hunter back in Africa many years ago, and when his gun suffered a broken stock, instead of pinning it, because when you're in Africa on safari for 2 months, you don't want it breaking again, certainly when something dangerous is charging you, he put metal plates either side of the grip with multiple screws to hold it in place. This isn't done to the most delicious standard, but it ain't bad, and actually adds to the character of the gun, although many of you may disagree. This is a testament to how much this person wanted to keep using this gun. The action is a double trigger non-ejector, being from 1897, engraved with crude pheasants on the bottom, beautiful scroll ovals, engraved screws, a short trigger tang, a horn grip cap, and ducks, Parker Brothers on the left side of the action, and some kind of game bird on the other side of the action. I mean, use your imagination. That could be whatever you want. Grouse, quail, guinea fowl, woodcock, pigeon, partridge. Nobody knows. There's an unknown game bird. But, you know, this was probably engraved by candlelight somewhere in Meriden, Connecticut. The rib is slightly tapered, concave, and file cut or rolled with Parker Brothers makers Meriden, Connecticut Damascus steel. It is not, however, Damascus steel anymore. The barrels were sleeved, and by that, this part is Damascus. They chopped the front off, usually because they were pitted, ruined, dented, bulged, unworthy to shoot, and they sleeve these inside. They bore out the inside of the monoblock that this now is and put in 2 tubes and fix them in place with some kind of metallic glue, and by that I mean either welded, brazed or soldered, before someone starts thinking they use super glue on this kind of thing. The barrels are 29 inches long and relatively heavy. The forend is on a lever latch remover. It's quite long. The checkering on it is obviously well worn. This gun has been used and loved, and honestly I can see why. For a gun that I bought just to look at the internals of, to sort of gain a better understanding of the make and the design, it is shockingly nice to shoot and actually relatively well put together. That big pistol grip, that large concave filed rib is so easy to get on targets and shoot them. And I can imagine, well I can't imagine, I have shot some clays with it in a walked up fashion and it just comes into its own. It's been a long journey for me going in and learning about American guns and sort of trying to understand the gun culture. And this is the first side-by-side from there that I've shot that I've actually truly fallen in love with. And yet, every time I've taken it out so far, somebody has a comment about it. This gun is a divider of opinions. Let's go shoot it. When I first got this gun, I put a YouTube short up, basically saying, should I scrap it, should I fix it, should I sell it, should I use it? And the mix of comments were massive and diverse, from people saying, that's junk, why would you waste money on it, to people saying, that's my dream gun that deserves to be hunted with. And it really got me thinking since of, how can a gun divide opinion so much? And I think the answer is it's because in England we just don't have an appreciation for Parkers or anything like that. You know, we have our own double gun culture, a rich and diverse one. I own nicer side-by-sides than this. And at first I thought it was junk, but I've changed my mind. I was wrong. This is a quality shotgun designed to be shot. I lied earlier, it's only a 27-inch, but because it's sleeved, the weight is deceptive. It feels longer than it is. I think the pistol grip is fantastic. You've got really quality things. The beading down the side, I just love that. The escutcheon is nice. The doll's head is wonderful. The profile of that top lever is really delightful. It just takes you moving outside of your cultural understanding sometimes to really get it. And exposure is a wonderful cure for bigotry, isn't it? And exposure to this has made me really fall in love. The problem is that it's never going to be loved in England. And that got me thinking, I've got to send this gun back to a country where it's going to be loved. It's not without its faults, right? It's short, it's broken, it's a little wobbly, the sleevedness and its actual shorter barrels are not wonderful. It shouldn't be easy or nice to shoot, but it is just a delightful gun to move around. In an ideal world, I would have bought a nicer one, but I'm not unhappy that I own this. I'm shocked because I just wanted to roast it and I can't. Somebody spent a lot of time and effort, well, maybe not time, but someone spent a lot of effort keeping this gun on the road, creating more and more and more memories with it. Like, this just strikes me as Granddaddy's gun through and through, and I presume there just became a generation where there was no longer a shooter in the family. I'd love to know the story of how it got here. I'd love to know some of the stories of what this gun has shot and what people have hunted with it. It actually fills me with passion. More shooting. You know, the problem is I already own a few nice London-built side-by-sides, so I'm never going to use this in earnest. I'm not. This gun deserves to be used and loved, and that is not going to happen in England. This gun needs to go home. I honestly bought this gun as a bit of a joke. I thought, hey, I want to own this American classic, see what it's all about. And depressingly, I've very quickly fallen in love with it. There's touches of class on this gun, like the way that this beading runs into the beading on the fore end that just, you know that actually this was a quality gun, and it still is today. As I said, I don't believe it belongs here. I think this needs to go home to America to be appreciated and loved and hunted with once again. That led me to the very tricky question of gun export. I've always been told it's very expensive and very hard, so I made a load of calls, called in as many favours as possible, and actually found a person who can export guns and does export guns for a more reasonable price. He's coming down here tomorrow to meet with me. After talking to many people and wading through a lot of companies that said this is very expensive and very hard, I found someone who was helpful and said, no, this is neither hard nor is it super expensive. In fact, it's a simple process. We very luckily met at the Holt's charity event, and you introduced yourself as a gun importer to America.
Exactly, yes, yeah.
You then went on to tell me that you're not extortionately expensive. In fact, you're the most reasonably priced sort of figures I've ever heard.
Even too cheap, you say?
I mean, I'll never say too cheap.
Okay, good.
Surprisingly inexpensive.
There you go. Good, we'll stick with that.
Cheap's a rough word, don't use cheap.
No, exactly, we don't want to be that.
So I have a gun I want to send. In fact, I have a few guns. Can you talk me through the process of what that actually looks like from the moment I now have bought a gun? What do I need to do?
Once you have your gun and you've decided to ship it to America, you get in touch with us, and we will then start the process. So first thing we need to do is have all the details of the gun, the firearm that you're shipping. So the characteristics of it. So barrel length, overall length, the make, model, serial number, those things.
Age?
We need an age for export license, and we need the value of it. So some sort of a pro forma invoice or an invoice if you're selling it to someone will determine all of that. Then with that, we can apply for a import permit in the US with ATF. That's a Form 6 Part 1 that we apply for with the ATF. They then determine if it's an item that's importable. Once we have the import permit approved, it then goes to the UK, where we process an export license. And that is my colleague, Greg, that will facilitate that. So in timelines also, just to give an idea, is that you should expect a couple of weeks on a normal, let's say a shotgun, to be approved for import, and then in the UK you should expect somewhere around 4 to 8 weeks on an export license.
So once it's looking at a total of 10 to 12 weeks to get it from UK to America.
Yes, I would say, and also because it needs to then join one of our shipments, or if it's joining our shipments, then it needs to just line up with the next shipment that's going.
That's so monthly from what you're saying?
So about every 4 to 5 weeks we have a shipment going where we'll consolidate your gun together with other people's items that are going out. And that's one of the ways that we do, that's one of the ways we do it in order to bring the pricing down to where it's palatable, so to speak. So if you think 8 to 12 weeks, then you're in the right mindset of shipping a gun.
As the person who's bought it or wanting to import it, I bought the gun, I just give you the details, you sort the rest until it arrives at my door, pretty much?
More or less. So we will pick up the gun from you, we'll do all the paperwork, we can store it while that's all going on, or you keep it here or with yourself. Once it then gets to America, we will process it through customs, we'll custom clear it. At that stage, then you will be, or the importer, whoever is buying the gun, will pay a duty if there is that liable on it. And if we're still talking a shotgun, you're looking at 3% in duty on the value.
There's no scale to that, it's 3% flat rate.
Yeah. So the only caveat to that is if it's more than 100 years old, you only pay the processing fee, which is 0.4%. So if you're sending an old gun...
Okay, so because the gun I want to send is from 1897.
Perfect. So there's no duty, there was only processing fee, which is 0.4% on the value.
Less tax.
Yes, exactly.
We like this.
Yes, exactly. Very cheap. Once it's there, we will then send it to a local firearms dealer in the US, where the person that takes possession or wants this gun need to have the background check and the
standard procedure state by state.
Correct, yes, have that taken over. So the only added fee really from the shipping to the US is the UPS fee traveling in from the East Coast to wherever in the US you want to bring that to.
Fees are an interesting thing because up until 2 weeks ago I thought that this was going to be an extortionately expensive process, hence I haven't ever done it, and it's a thing that puts lots of people off. You know, there's quotes out there of it being 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 a gun. You have said that's not the case, which is really exciting. Can you talk me through what it's going to cost for me to get one gun out, although we've also discussed that more is better.
Yeah.
What's it going to cost me to get guns to America?
The base rate for traveling with the gun or getting the gun shipped from the UK, from it's at our office here in the UK with Greg, to the US is £350 for the first item. Once it's then in Arlington, we pay the duty, or we pay any duty that's liable on the item.
Okay,
so you need
plus
to add
3%.
Plus 3%. And then it has cleared customs. We do that. And then it's just a question of sending it to where you are. So if it's coming from where we are in Arlington, Virginia, and it's going to, let's say, California as the furthest part, you're probably looking at, for one shotgun, $75 in UPS charge.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're closer, then UPS charge us less, and we'll charge you less.
But so the export is done in pounds because it's done from the UK. So if we just put that into a dollar rate right now, 350 times 1.25, $437.50 plus $65.
Yeah.
You're looking a single gun to get from where I'm stood right now to California, $502.
Yeah.
It gets better if you send more.
Yeah, because of course we have done the startup with the paperwork and the export documentation. So the next gun is only £220.
It's £145 a gun, or $188 a gun if you do 10.
Yeah, and then they're in Arlington, and then we just need to bring them to you. So depending on when, again, the US is, that's the local, the domestic charge that will be added on. But that will be variable, of course.
So $188.
Yeah.
Variable charge when you get there, but probably no more than $65 a gun.
No, and again, if we're shipping 3 guns, we're maybe looking 125. I mean, so it's not going to just escalate because of that.
3% import tax, that's going to depend on the guns.
Yes,
I'm
value.
not into particularly expensive guns, so that's going to be all right.
And if you're into old guns, even better. There was only 0.4%.
That's a throwaway charge, isn't it?
Yes.
That's pretty good. Do gun shops charge for people to collect the guns generally?
Yeah, so normally there is a process they have to go through, also when they're receiving the gun, to bring them onto their bound book and again to sign them out. So we see fees from anything from $35 to maybe $75 for the more expensive transfer fees. So that's what we normally see people do. And I think if you have a relationship with a gun shop that you buy from regularly, I'm sure they'll give you a good deal. But that's again something you need to sort out local.
$300 a gun over 10 would include sending them individually, paying a transfer fee, and getting them done.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
$3,000 for 10 guns.
Yeah.
Plus import duty.
Yeah.
That's suddenly way more interesting than $1,000 a gun.
It is indeed, yeah. We can collect your guns from any dealer or private location here in the UK on our own IFD with Cordline. Store them until they ship, as I said, but also with Holtz, because we ship a lot for them. And customers that buy at Holtz, we will actually collect included in that fee.
That's
so again,
good.
Yeah, so if you're buying with Holtz, then you already cut some of that out.
I mean, I'm sending a gun that's worth £130, $200.
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about insurance.
No.
But if I was sending something that I genuinely deeply cared about, or 10 things, which is probably going to be the case by the time we finish this conversation, I'll find 10 guns to send.
Good.
What you're looking at, like, how does insurance work? You will want to insure a packet.
Yeah, so for the whole journey, you could take out maritime insurance, which covers it, because the airlines, they work on a different scale, and you're going to get very little back if the guns are broken or they disappear in transport, which they shouldn't do. So you probably want to take out insurance. You're looking at a minimum of 1.5% on the value, the invoice value, and that should normally insure it. We do also third-party insurance in the US, because that seems to be the place where they're most vulnerable. So because the journey from the UK to the US, we pack them in big wooden crates that are purpose-built for us. So it protects them and also makes sure that they don't go missing. So that's probably the best way to do it. But I would recommend to either through your own insurance or through us to third-party insure it in the last stage from Arlington to where you are, because that's where they are vulnerable in cardboard boxes.
I mean, I'm sold on that. That's a bargain.
Perfect.
It sounds easy. I've looked into this extensively, and the best way I found, I think, was for me to send stuff through a export courier and then get someone at the other end and try and sort out the logistics. But actually that was more expensive than the figures we're talking about. So this is way more convenient. I
mean, we keep everything in-house and we handle it end-to-end, or from beginning to start, if you want to put it that way. And I think that's why we can optimize some of or scale the costings around it, and also doing larger shipments like we do. That's why you also have to wait until we have a next shipment, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. But you're already looking at a long process, and it's not an easy fix. I mean, you could go a little bit quicker, but it's actually only the travel time that you're cutting down, because the paperwork at both ends is probably the part that takes the longest. So the journey from here, from the UK to Arlington, is in wooden crates, and it's well protected there, and we make sure that it stays that way then.
After that, I presume if somebody paid you, you would put it in an ABS case for them.
Yeah, and if the gun travels already in a case, then it just goes in the box like it is. So the way you handle it or hand it in to us, that's how we would send it.
And that's going to change customer to customer.
Yes.
He who is sending you a Baker won't care. He who is sending a Purdy will probably want it in a case, well protected.
Exactly, and again, otherwise, if it arrives like many other guns that we receive from Holtz, they arrive as pure or clean guns just as they are. They get individually bubble wrapped before they leave, and again, then they're protected at the other end in either cardboard box shipping, or we offer that we can pack them in plastic cases that are foam padded for a small fee of $25 for an extra case. So that way it ships like that instead.
Final thing is, you mentioned that anything over a certain value does have another charge, the $2,500 mark you mentioned?
Yes, on items over $2,500 on invoice value, we have to engage with a customs broker. So there is an extra fee of $150 for items over $2,500.
And you say items, packets?
Yeah, so invoice. Everything is based on invoice value. You can have either one item on an invoice, or your commercial invoice, or you can have 10 or 100 on there. So if that invoice then creeps over $2,500, and also I should maybe say that we work off an invoice. So if you're sending 10 guns from 10 different dealers, then our paperwork load is also quite different on the export licensing.
That's 10 first gun prices in that instance?
It would be, yeah.
Okay, so that's 10 350s.
Yes, exactly. So if you're buying, make sure you buy from the same dealer, or
if they have a handle, does that work? So for example, they could go to a gun shop and said, I want to buy this, this and this, can you buy them? I'll pay you, put them on one ticket for me, and they'd save a significant amount of money.
Exactly, because then they're exported on that commercial invoice. That makes life easier for you, it's a bit cheaper, and it simplifies the process for us as well.
now that we got a coffee, and just before I move on to my final question, final question.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think up until this point, I was scared from this process. I know a few of my friends have had guns sent out, but the processes are expensive or hard or DIY, and that's just going to put a lot of people off. I think England is a wonderful place to come and buy guns that we don't value. You can buy guns here for nothing because our market doesn't value the second-hand stuff quite so highly.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put this in a box and send you the details, the weight, the age, the barrel length, overall length, the details that you will give me, hopefully.
Yeah. Make, model, serial number. Yeah.
Put it in a case, send it up.
Yeah. So you have an RFD, so you can send it in the post up to us, and we'll send it on for you. And hopefully in 8 to 12 weeks, it'll pop out the other end. I
look forward to catching up with that gun as and when, although given what you've said, sending one gun isn't as good as sending 10 guns.
Good idea.
And so, I mean, I've got a few that probably would be better off in America. I've got a few friends who have a few that want exported, so I'm sure we will put them onto one invoice.
Good idea, yes, I would advise that, yeah.
To save money.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. And
you're welcome.
But I'm sure you'll get many emails being like, where is it from me? Because I am that customer.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
Excellent. Yeah.
Cheers. And so it nears the end of this gun's English adventure. In about an hour's time, it's going to get boxed up and sent off. Kind of melancholic because I've become somewhat attached to this thing. It's a really lovely gun to use. And yet, its adventure needs to continue, and it just won't ever continue in England. Not in the way that this gun deserves to be used and shot. I look forward to knowing what this gun does in the future, and I'm sure I'll bump into it again next time I'm over in the USA. I feel like we've done a good thing. What do you think? Thank you for watching, guys. This channel is made possible by our amazing sponsors. You can find out more about them in the description down below. And if you want to support the channel, you can join as a member. You get loads of extra content, well, some extra content, and occasionally we hook up and go clay shooting together as a membership group. If you don't feel like joining today, we really appreciate you watching and subscribing. Have a wonderful day.